Hi, I'm David Partika, and I created CSSBurner as a rapid optimization tool for CSS. Today's help video is going to be about using the statistical analysis function, which is here on the top of the nav menu, second icon from the left. And this is going to be a new updated help video because the interface has changed for the statistical analysis. There was a previous video on how to use stats, but now this is going to be for the new interface as of April 2018. So I already have a style sheet that is copied. And so we enter data into this text area by pasting, by drag and drop, and various other ways. And we see that this is a style sheet that's roughly 600 kilobytes. And so now let's click on the statistical analysis menu. And we see here that currently there's only the option to select CSS. In the future, there will be the ability to analyze less in SAS. Now, what I've done to prevent the dropdown, the analysis dropdown, which is disabled at this point, to prevent it from being, more than the viewport height, I've had to group the data a little bit. So now what we have is data categories, and you can focus on selectors, declaration blocks, or some miscellaneous. So let's go through all of them, and note that there's going to be permission levels that are associated with some of these selections. But we first start with a data presentation type, and so right now, if you don't have the permission level, which is just having a login, we're working on that, and we'll release it soon, you cannot access mean, median, mode, and range, but you can always access number of occurrences or percentage. So let's take number of occurrences, and once we select a data type, then the analysis type now is enabled. And we see that for selectors, there are currently 7 different types of analyses that can be done. You can look for @rules like @media. You can look for selectors, which the focus will be attribute selectors, combinators, which is how you form complex selectors. For example, the plus, that's between, say, the selector div plus p. That plus, that's a combinator. Or the tilde, the general sibling selector, div tilde p, that's a combinator. Pseudo classes, for example, hover, things like focus, active. Those are pseudo classes, which is in contrast to pseudo elements, which has 2 colons, after, before, placeholder, selected. Now, we see simple versus compound versus complex. This is going to be an analysis which will tell you your distribution of a simple selector, which is just simply something like div, or a class like dot AAA. That's a simple selector versus compound versus complex. Complex will have a combinator, div plus p. Compound will be something that's multiple classes or IDs or whatever chained together. Dot AAA dot BBB. That's a selector, compound selector. And a type selector will be a selector that matches an HTML element. So, for example, div is a type selector. So this is the focus on selectors for number of occurrences. Declaration blocks. Now, if we click on this, we reset the menu here for the analysis type, and we see that there are 4 of these. And currently we have CSS properties, so a count of, for example, display or color. Property value functions is the second one, which is, for example, linear gradient, URL function. Property value pairs, which is a count of, for example, display none. So what's going to be the most common key value pairs that we have there. And finally, a count of vendor prefix CSS properties. So you just want to see how many instances of, for example, WebKit, whatever property that you have within the style sheet. Now, finally, we have a miscellaneous category, and we see that this is currently HTTP requests. So for example, the URL function, if it's requesting from an external server maybe an image file like a PNG that's external, it will need an HTTP and server and then the resource name versus a server request. This is internal, and this is going to be for example, the URL function referencing an image on your server. Now, let's pick one of these analyses just to show you. So I'm going to take selectors, and let's see in this style sheet. Let's see the distribution of attribute selectors. And typically, in the statistical analysis function, you can either have as your source a URL. You can have direct input into the text area, which is what we have right now, or you can click this box if your source is a file, but now we have direct input, so let's analyze this, and then we'll soon get a bar graph of the distribution. And what you should note is that there's going to be a maximum of depends on the category, but there's a maximum of 8, but for some categories there'll be fewer. And we see all the different types of attribute selectors in this style sheet and a count of them. And we see that it ranges from 1 to 12, and 12 being for type. What we can do also is we can reset if we want to start over. And I'm going to be adding also some more advanced options in the future, which is going to be for, if you have a higher permission level, for example, if you subscribed to the email list and you've also logged in, you'll be able to access certain features. For example, multi-select or having multiple graphs, analyzed at once, or categories analyzed at once, so multiple graphs. Also, toggling between bar and pie graph, I'm going to add that. And this will all go in the corner here. And finally, if we want to reset, what we do is we just click this icon, and now we're back to the starting point. So this is how we now use statistical analysis. And I hope this was helpful for you. If it was, please give it a thumbs up and look for some more videos on the Optimized CSS channel in the near future.